What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Nostalgia. So recently Google's kind of been shoving down our throats that their Flash player is they're not gonna support it anymore. And so I thought, why not make a video dedicated to looking back at some of the big Flash games that I used to play and probably a lot of you guys used to play back in school when you probably weren't supposed to be. Almost every kid kind of knew where to go to find them. One of the biggest ones was Cool Math. I used Cool Math or Y8 a lot just because they were easy, and basically everyone knew Cool Math though. They were like the YouTube of Flash games. Like almost no one else was really known when it came to their category. So instead of just me talking about Cool Math for another 8 minutes, let's look at the games that you and I probably played and see if they still are as good as they once were or if they are just something that passed the time. So one of the biggest games I can talk about, honestly, was the little Pop series, like Pop's Pizza, Pop's Wings, all the other 60 games they had, because they had so many, it was honestly overwhelming. And, I mean, it was a very simple premise, you have to own a store and you can decorate and all that kind of stuff, but it just took off, and it's honestly, for me personally, one of the biggest nostalgia games, I guess you can call them, are those, just because I would play a bunch of them, and they were kind of addicting. There's not too much to say. I mean, all you really do is you greet the customers, you make the food, and then you design it, or whatever you want to call it. You add the, sauces if it was wings, or the toppings if it was pizza, all that fun stuff. And looking back at it, I would probably say it falls into the time waster category than actual fun. Not saying that we shouldn't have played it, but we probably only played it just because we were bored. So Run 2 was another big game that I know a lot of people played. I didn't play it personally as much as some of the others on this list, but I can say it was definitely a fun game to play with a very simple idea that you jump through walls and try not to fall to your death in the void of space. It picked up with a lot of people, and I think that's a good reason. It has a simple but addictive gameplay, and honestly it's something that most 8-year-olds are gonna play just because of the simple cutie graphics and all the other fun stuff that kids like. I don't know, maybe kids don't like that anymore. I know they like Fortnite. If it's gonna go into either category, I would say this game is legitimately fun. It's something that I'll probably wish I played more once Flash is gone and will regret deeply on my deathbed. I'd say this game is actually fun, not necessarily a time waster. With such a simple idea, you really can't go wrong. So the Bob the Robber series, I think there's only 3 or 4 games. There weren't too many, but they also took a very simple premise and just kind of expanded on it, letting you go through different houses, introducing different enemies, like the dog, the bodyguard, the cameras you had to avoid. It was really well executed for such a, quick, easy idea. Now, I will say the games did become really repetitive after the first few levels, or even the first few games, I should say. And I think a few levels were used on multiple games, but I'm not 100% sure on that one. Even though it doesn't have the best storyline you'd come to expect with a Flash game, just quirkiness of the game, I think, really attracted a lot of people who wanted to play it. Really, I don't think it would go into a category. It's not necessarily yes, I would play this, I would go out of my way to play this, but it's not necessarily a time waster where we only played it because we were just desperate for fun. I would say this is kind of in the middle. It's more up to personal preference. I liked the games, but looking back, they weren't as good as I made them in my head. Duck Life was a game I know a ton of people played, especially in my schools. It was a very simple, you get a duck, you raise it, and then you race it. I can't exactly imagine that's the most profitable sport in the world. So yeah, you'd feed them seeds or super seeds, and then you train them or race them once you got leveled up high enough, and then you got a crown or something, and oh, you were the best duck. And that was basically it, rinse and repeat a few times for the, I think, 2 or 3 games they made. It was a very similar premise, except they expanded on it. A lot of it was repetitive. It's definitely a grinding game, and personally, I'm not very big into grinding games. I guess Minecraft's kind of a grinding game. There's some level of freedom, which it didn't have. I would say Duck Life was more of a time waster. It was mainly used just when we needed fun, rather than something that I would go out of my way to play. It just has way too much repetition. Poptropica is a game that I played actually outside of school sometimes, like 2 or 3 times, and it's okay. It's not as good as I remember. It's very, very simple. There's really no one goal you have to do. You're just kind of sent to these multiple islands, and you have a little story, and I'm pretty sure some of them you had to pay to do the story, so it was like episode, but for kids. It had an idea that was not executed that well. Granted, this is from memory, but I feel like it could have done more, and they just didn't, and it was just left to a simple idea. Then again, this is 3 years ago. I don't know if they still work on it or not. This is just from what I remember. And finally, we have Bloxorz? Rusty Box, basically. So this game, you know, it's a simple puzzle game that they executed extremely well. It takes a very simple premise of you're a giant rectangle that's trying to fit into a hole, and they expand on it by not only using weird layouts for you to figure out your own routes and get in, but they also introduce like bridges and then falling blocks and all this other kind of stuff that really expand what the game was, and not leaving it to just a simple premise of, oh, go in hole and then you win. You know, do that level like 5 times over and then you're just done. It's something they expanded on, and I actually think they did really, really well on. I'd give this game an actually fun game. I'd like to see this game on mobile if it's not already, just because it's a very simple game that kind of reminds me of very early Apple, you know, like when the Apple Store was just introduced, like the simple games they had, something like that. It would have fit really well back then. So all in all, looking back at the games, I don't think they are as great as I remember them, but I still think the games did a really good job at what they were supposed to. They definitely were good time wasters, or even just genuinely fun for a few of them. And I'm genuinely gonna miss Flash just because of all the memories I used to have on it, and I know the memories of a ton of you guys used to have on it, that it's just not, you know, it's gonna be a little weird without it. And so that's why I just wanna say, rest in peace, Flash. You will be missed. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you liked it, make sure you leave a like, and if you want more content like this, make sure you subscribe, as it is the #1 way to support me right now. Tell me what you guys think of the video in the comments below. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Anything else you want to say? I read every comment, and I always love reading the comments, even if it's hate comments. Those are funny. I'll see you guys in the next video, where I throw ornaments at abandoned buildings until an old man yells at me. Bye. I'm a simple